welcome everybody. This is the Thom Hartmann Program. I'm Danielle here with Shano sitting in for Tom today. He is out in Vegas and he will be back before you know it. So in the meantime, we are here doing our best to fill in. And one of my favorite people to help fill Tom's shoes is the one and only John Nichols, National Affairs correspondent with The Nation magazine and co-author of a great new book, People Get Ready, The Fight Against a Jobless Economy and a Citizenless Democracy. John, thank you so much for being with us.
It is a total pleasure to be with you.
Now, in all of the back and forth about the primary, I think a few people are kind of getting forgotten in our discussion. They all happen to be Republicans, one of which you just wrote an excellent article about called New York to Ted Cruz, Drop Dead. Do I take it that some of those New York values that Ted Cruz mentioned include not being too big of a fan of Ted Cruz?
Well, they pummeled the guy.
Yeah.
It was an amazing result. And you know, if we had even the most minimal historical memory in our political media in this country, which we don't, let's be clear. It's always, every day is a new day in American political media. People would recognize that just 2 weeks ago today, everybody in political media was saying, oh, Ted Cruz won Wisconsin. It was overwhelming. It was amazing. He's developed this new model for linking together extreme conservatives with sort of more Main Street Republicans to stop Trump. And now they're going to take it to New York. You remember Ted Cruz stormed into New York. He appeared in the Bronx, and he made a big deal about that. And then he did campaigning across upstate New York. He also poured, he and his super PAC, or PACs associated with him, supporting him, millions and millions of dollars into New York. He made a serious campaign in the state. And you know what percentage of the vote he got on Staten Island, the most Republican borough in New York City?
I believe it was single digits, unless we're counting the point after the decimal.
7%.
7%. 7.9%, yes. Which was
comic.
Yes, it's almost insulting. It's almost like people really don't like him. I think that they might be taking a cue from members of the U.S. Senate who also tend to not be big Ted Cruz fans.
Totally not. In fact, it's the cruelest thing that Trump does. And remember, Trump is a really cruel guy. Is to point out, that lack of interest in Cruz by his colleagues. But what happened in New York, and what I think will happen in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, Connecticut, Rhode Island, is a really important sort of wake-up call as regards this process. The conservative elites, and there is a new conservative elite in the United States, funded by extreme right-wing money. This is where these billionaires have put so much of their money, is to developing a new right-wing conservative infrastructure, which is not the traditional Republican establishment, but it's an establishment unto itself, a new establishment. They bet on Cruz in late March, early April, as the way to stop Trump. It was, to use a word, and I'll try and find, I'm going to use the technical term here, stupid. On Cruz. And Cruz was guaranteed not to go places. Yeah, he can hustle a Wyoming caucus, right? But this guy he has within him the unique ability to put off almost everyone. And New Yorkers, it wasn't just the New York values quote. He could have explained that away. He doubled down on it. He put radio ads all over New York radio attacking Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York. You actually would have thought Cruz was running against de Blasio. Yeah. Because he thought New York conservatives, New York Republicans, were dumb enough that if they heard somebody criticizing de Blasio, they'd vote for that candidate. I mean, Cruz is always too smart by half, and it always blows up on him.
It really is an interesting point because he was the first candidate in most states to be on the ballot, to get the number of signatures needed, to do all of the legwork to theoretically win the nomination. But it seems that, like his time in the Senate, the more general voters, especially, and including Republicans, are exposed to him, the more they dislike him. Now, I would think that that's the reaction we would get to Trump with his insults and his inability to really outline any real policy. But despite Ted Cruz's resume and the fact that he knows the issues inside and out and he talks all the conservative talking points, people even in his own party just dislike him. And I think New York was like, the icing on the cake to really tell the Republican Party, if you want Trump to not be your nominee, this probably isn't the guy you should choose.
That's exactly right. Find somebody who's minimally appealing. I know politics isn't fair, but you don't just get the nomination because you got your petitions in first.
So what do you think this means for Kasich or Paul Ryan or any of the other names being floated out there? Do you think this increases their chances to have support when it comes to the convention?
Actually, this is the really sad part of the story, the agonizingly sad part of the story, because the new conservative elite, slathered in money from billionaires, but not really that informed or that serious about politics, bet on Ted Cruz because all these talk radio people and others, decided, at a certain point after Rubio disappeared, their previously ridiculous candidate, they said, as they went on Cruz, I think they've sacrificed enormous amounts of time and energy on a failed mission. And so I'm not sure that it means much for Kasich, although I think Kasich will do better in these upcoming primaries than Cruz in a number of them. I'm not sure it means so much for anybody else. I think they may have screwed it up so badly that they potentially have handed it to Trump.
Yeah. Well, it was their own rule changes that allowed Trump to, gain so much traction, their own shortening of the primary because they didn't want the repeat of previous nomination cycles. So it's only fitting that their reaction and their attempts at solution kind of maybe damning them to a candidate that their party doesn't want. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think they've created their own nightmare.
Yeah.
Right? They watched a horror film right before they went to bed, and now they're having nightmares and they're all upset about it.
Yes.
Well, here's my counsel. Maybe alter your schedule a little more, do things differently. They didn't. And the end result is now they're degenerating. The whole thing is degenerating into this sort of pathos that, oh, no, woe is us. We've got a candidate who can't win. We tried to replace him with another candidate who can't win. He can't win. Now we're going to have to deal with all this. And the best part of it, at least from my standpoint, is if you step back, the Democrats are, Sanders and Clinton are doing the usual arguments of, mid-April. This is common stuff. Not very exciting. But Elizabeth Warren is doing some really interesting stuff right now. She called out Cruz the other day with just an incredibly powerful takedown. She got an email that Cruz sent to his supporters when she was whining about how hard it was to run for president. And she said, who it's hard for, Ted Cruz? It's really hard for the people who you won't give a minimum wage increase to. It's really hard for the people who you won't allow to expand their health care. It's really hard for the people in the LGBTQ community that you keep pounding on. It's really hard for women who you have not respected. It's really hard for trade unionists who you've attacked. She just went at them, and it was a reminder that while I think Clinton and Sanders both have a tremendous amount to argue for, Elizabeth Warren, boy, does she know how to go after these Republicans.
It is a thing of beauty to watch, and I just would love to see a whole Congress full of people just like her who stand up. We're going to be back with even more John Nichols in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here, and please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.